Watch the world go by in a corner of the room. I know it's none of my business, but there's something I need to say. You could see you the way I see you, you'd start flying on your own. Step aside and let your light shine, let your love show. It's a short ride down a long road. When the rain comes and the wind blows, let your light shine wherever you go. This world is ready and waiting for you to break on through. It's time to recognize, to realize you're the only one like you. Step on up, step into your greatness. Don't be afraid. There's a place where you will rise up to. No one else can do what you do. So get out of the way, let your light shine, let your love show. It's a short ride down a long road. When the rains come and the winds blow, let your light shine wherever you go. Get out of the way, let your light shine, let your love show. It's a short ride down a long road. When the rains come and the winds blow, let your light shine wherever you go. Let your light shine, let your love show. It's a short ride down a long road. When the rains come and the winds blow, let your light shine wherever you go. Let your light shine.
Oh, good afternoon. All right, we can do a whole lot better than that. Today, it's all about being yourself. It's all about you today. We're excited to be here. We're excited to express our Christ self. So we're going to try this one more time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Say, I like the... That's nice. It's very nice. Well, welcome to one of our first chapel services of the year. If this is your first time at one of our student chapel services, these happen every Wednesday at 4 o'clock right here in Fillmore Chapel. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us as students to come and get to practice our ministerial skills. And it's a wonderful opportunity for you to come out and hear a great service. So I want to welcome everybody. And if you have been here before, welcome back. But as I said, today we're going to be talking about how it's all about you. And it's all about that Christ nature and that Christ presence that's inside of you. That's what today is going to be all about. So before we get too much farther into this, let's just take a moment and open with prayer. And so we set aside this moment to know and affirm that the divine power and divine presence of God is here active with us and is here active within each and every one of us. And so we choose to rest now in that presence, dedicating this next time, this next hour, to focusing only on God in us, and knowing that that presence brings about powerful changes in our lives. And for that we say, thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. And now, if you would like to stand and join with Molly as we sing The Awakening.
Welcome, 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 welcome to your awakening. Another day, another way, I have come for my awakening. Another start for my heart. I have come for my awakening. Another day, another way, I have come for my awakening. Another start for my heart. I have come for my awakening. It's a new day for creation. I am at the starting line. I will dream my destination and make it mine. It's already mine. Another day, another way. Another start for my heart. I have come for my awakening. We are here for celebration. There is wisdom in our love, from our heart's imagination. Our vision now will rise above. Another day, another way. I have come for my awakening. Another start for our hearts. We have come for our awakening. We have come for our awakening.
And I would like to invite you to turn to somebody next to you and tell them that you're glad they're here. Yeah. Thanks for being here, friend. Oh, wow, I can't see that clock at all, can I? And now I'd like to invite you to prepare for a time of meditation as Fred and Molly lead us into that time with music.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
You are the face of God. You are the breath of God. the hands of God, the feet of God. Your very nature is God. So in this moment, we allow ourselves to relax into this experience, letting any and all tensions from our day just melt away as we focus on the truth that we are the expression of God. And so in this moment, I would like to invite you to say yes. Say yes to God. Yes to the Christ presence within you. Yes to truly letting go and letting that presence guide and direct your life. And in this moment, as we've said yes, we allow a particular quality of God, a particular Christ quality to come into our minds. It may be compassion, it may be love, joy. Whatever that quality is, we focus on that now. Allowing ourselves to fully immerse ourselves, our body, our spirit, our minds, in that quality as we rest in the silence. I am the Christ, whole and perfect. I am enough. And so as we move forward from this time of connection with God, with our own Christ nature, we do so knowing that that connection remains. We do so knowing that we carry that connection with us in this and all moments. And so it is. Amen.
We come with beautiful secrets. We come with purposes written on our hearts, written on our souls. We come to every new morning with possibilities only we can hold, that only we can hold. Redemption comes in strange places, small spaces, calling out the best of who we are. And burning up inside. Oh, oh. It comes in small inspirations. It brings redemption to life and work, to our lives and our work. It comes in loving community. It comes in helping a soul find its worth. A soul find its worth. Redemption comes in strange places, small spaces, calling out the best of who we are. And I want to add to the beauty to tell a better story. Oh, shine with a light that's burning up inside. Oh, 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 oh. And this is grace, an invitation to be beautiful. And this is grace, an invitation. Redemption comes in strange places, small spaces, calling out our best. And I want to add to the beauty. Oh, and I want to shine with a light that's burning up inside. And I want to add to the beauty to tell a better story. Oh, shine with a light that's burning up inside. Oh, 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 oh. Thank you.
Oh, it's all about you. You know that, right? It is all about you. I mean, you really know that. That right here, right now, right where you sit, that you are enough. That even the smallest bit of a difference that you might make can have a lasting impact on the world. You know, as I was preparing for this lesson today, and I was preparing for the service, I was looking over just various examples of all of the differences that people have made in this world. And what really stood out for me was it was the small things that people did that seemed to have the greatest impact. And so as I was looking, I found this story, and I'd like to share it with you today. It's called The Three Red Marbles, and it's by W.E. Peterson. And this is a story that first appeared in 1975 in Ensign magazine. And I did kind of do a little bit of looking into it, and this is a true story. It's not one of those urban legends that seems to snake its way around and masquerade as a true story. So, one day, Mr. Miller was bagging some early potatoes for me. I noticed a small boy, delicate of bone and feature, ragged but clean, hungrily appraising a basket of freshly picked green peas. I paid for my potatoes, but was also drawn to the display of fresh peas. You see, I'm a sucker for creamed peas and new potatoes. Pondering the peas, I couldn't help but overhear the conversation between Mr. Miller and the ragged boy next to him. "Hello, Barry, how are you today?" "Hello, Mr. Miller, I'm just fine, thank you. Those peas sure look good." "Well, they are good, Barry. How's your ma doing?" Mr. Miller asked. I said, "Fine. She's getting stronger all the time." "Well, that's good. Is there anything I can help you with?" I said, "No, sir, I'm just admiring those peas." I said, "Well, would you like to take some home with you?" I said, "Well, no, sir, I got nothing to pay for them with." I said, "Well," Mr. Miller thought and said, "what have you got to trade me for them with?" The boy said, "Well, all I got is my prize marble." I had a prize marble. It went away. All the boy had was his prize marble. Mr. Miller said, "Is that right? Let me see it." The boy said, "Well, here it is. She's a dandy," and handed it to him. Mr. Miller pondered it for a while and looked at it and said, I can see that. But the only thing is, this one's blue. And I really like red marbles. Do you have a red one like this at home?" And the boy said, "Well, not exactly, but almost." And Mr. Miller said, "Well, I'll tell you what. You go ahead and take these peas and go home. And the next time you come back, you bring that marble with me, or with you, and I'll take a look at it then." The boy excitedly said, "Sure will, Mr. Miller," and ran off with his peas. Mrs. Miller, who had been standing nearby, came over to help. And with a smile, she looked over at me and said, "There's 2 other boys just like that in our community. All 3 are in very, very poor circumstances. And Jim just loves to bargain with them for peas, apples, tomatoes, whatever. And whenever they come back with their red marbles, and they always come back with their red marbles, he decides he doesn't like red anymore and sends them off with another bag of produce, and this time to come back with a green or maybe an orange one." I left the stand smiling to myself, impressed with this man. And then a short while later, I moved to Colorado, but I never forgot the story of Mr. Miller, those boys and their bartering. And we'll hear more about Mr. Miller later. But the reason I wanted to share that story with you today is because I think it's a wonderful example about how when we act from a place of compassion and we trust that goodness that's within us, we can make a wonderful difference. Here's a story about a man who saw a need in his community and figured out a way to provide these families with the fresh food that they needed without the boys feeling like they were just having it given to them. They felt like they'd earned it. Now, I just found this story. I don't know Mr. Miller. I'm fairly certain he's probably not a unity guy and probably doesn't know what the Christ nature is. But what I do know is that when we act from our Christ nature, when we act from that place of God within us, we can't help but make a wonderful difference in the world around us. We have 5 principles that we teach in unity, and each one of them is very powerful. But today, I want to focus on our second principle. And it's our second principle that states our essence is of God. Therefore, we are inherently good. This God essence is called the Christ, and that was fully expressed in Jesus. What I want to tell you today is that when you live from your Christ self, you are always more than enough. When you live from that Christ presence that's within you, there's not an obstacle that can stand in your way, and there's no difficulty that's too much for you to overcome. Now, being the good Unity Institute seminary student that I am, I decided it would be wise to go back and take a look at what our founders wrote about this topic. So I looked at Charles and Myrtle Fillmore's writings. Now, this may be hard for some of you to believe, but Charles Fillmore wrote quite extensively on this Christ nature thing. You can find it in pretty much any book he's written. But I found one quote in particular that I want to share with you. And this comes from Talks on Truth, and if you feel like fact-checking my sources later, it's page 167. But in Talks on Truth, Mr. Fillmore writes, "We cannot separate Jesus Christ from God, or tell where man leaves off and God begins in him. To say that Jesus Christ was a man as we are men is not true, because he dropped that personal consciousness by which we separate ourselves as men and women. He was consciously one with the absolute principle of being. He had no consciousness separate from that being. He was that being to all intents and purposes." And this is where I want you to pay attention, because this is where it gets really, really good. the next line that Fillmore writes is, "Yet he attained no more than is expected of every single one of us. That they may be one as we are was his prayer." Now, Mr. Fillmore doesn't write that we have the ability to be as he was, or we have the choice. No, he writes that it is our expectation to become the Christ presence. That's our goal here on this planet. And as we become the Christ presence, then we live from those Christ qualities, those qualities of compassion, of love, and of joy. And from that place, we make a difference in our world. I looked at a few other sources, and I found in Discover the Power Within You that Eric Butterworth says it a little bit differently. Butterworth writes, "We may use the phrase, 'let go and let God.' Actually, this is little more than a platitude until we make a conscious decision to let God really take over in every area of our lives. We may be slow to make this decision because we do not realize that it is a decision. In other words, there's a lot more involved than simply saying to ourselves, 'Maybe God can handle this a little bit better than I can. Tell you what, if God has any good ideas, I'll consider it.' No, it's a matter of our earnest resolve to see ourselves in a new light, the light of the Christ and of our own unique unity with God. And then it is the determination to act as if I were, and I shall know that I am. That is the great decision. To act as if I were, and I know, and I shall know that I am." So Reverend Butterworth has also given us some clues as to how we can fully take on this Christ nature. We take on this Christ nature by acting as if we are the Christ. And when we come from that place of Christ, we become more and more the Christ nature. You see, it's important to never forget that when you come from that place of being the Christ nature, that you are always enough, no matter what. Now, I did take a look outside of Unity's sources, and because I want you to know, this isn't just an idea that's found in Unity. We find this idea in the Gospel of John as well. In the Gospel of John, in chapter 14, verse 12, and just to give you a little background about where we are in the story of Jesus, this chapter in the Gospel of John happens right after the Last Supper, right after he's washed his disciples' feet. And Jesus is telling his disciples, sort of giving them his last teachings before he's arrested and the events of Holy Week take place. And in chapter 14 of John, this is where we find all of those wonderful phrases about, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," and "I am the Father and the Father is in me." This is all in John, all of that wonderful language. But the point I want to draw our attention to today is verse 12, I'm sorry. And in verse 12, the writers of the Gospel of John write, "Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And in fact will do greater works than these because I am going to the Father." Now we could stand here for hours and have a deep theological discussion about what the writers meant when they said, "the one who believes in me." But I think it's fairly clear that second part will also do the works that I do, and greater than these will also do. Now, I'm going to put my own spin on it, and I'm going to tell you that at this point, remember back to that Fillmore quote I read earlier when we were talking about how Jesus became fully being when he dropped the human self? I'm going to go ahead and say that at this point, Jesus has dropped that human nature at this point in our story. And so he is the Christ presence. And so when we act from that place of the Christ presence, that's when we do those greater things. That's when we'll be able to do the works that he has done, and greater even than those. Now, one of the things that I have always appreciated about my own spiritual path and my own spiritual growth has been the ability to grow through discussion and through dialogue, Both here at Unity Institute, so much happens through an in-class discussion, and even before. It was the dialogue and the questions that I would answer with friends, and we would talk back and forth about things of a spiritual nature. And so I thought what we would do here today is we'd do just a little bit of that. I'd like to take maybe, I don't know, let me see, I've got a chandelier in my way, maybe about 5 minutes or so, and just open the floor for us to have a discussion about this idea that when you're the Christ, you are enough. So Jeffrey's got a microphone there. If you have a question or something you would like to add, you can wave your hand, and I'm sure he will run right over or walk briskly. Nothing? Anyone?
Enough for what?
I would say enough for anything that's standing in your way. Whatever problem it is that's facing you, when you remember that you have the Christ nature, God, the divinity within you, whatever term is most comfortable for you, that when you come from that place first, that the difficulties just kind of melt away. The answers are there. The answers are present. Whether it's enough to help out another human or nature or the world around you, or it's enough to face the challenges in your own life. It's when we rely on that nature, we're more than enough to beat those difficulties. No.
I'll go easy on you.
It's not L&O till January.
So where does our humanity fit in with that? Because I know in those human moments that I can recognize that I have the Christ within me, but I may not be feeling that connection or that possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think nobody's perfect, and nobody's going to. I certainly wouldn't put it on yourself to feel like you have to be the Christ all the time and then start beating up on yourself in the moments where your human side comes through. But when we do have those moments, and we all have those moments, I know I've had them too, that's when we have each other that we can turn to. And so when we have prayer chaplains around us, there are prayer chaplains here today. We have our colleagues, our coworkers, ministers, people that are willing to stand in that space for us and to see that we are the Christ, even in times when maybe we can't. So, yes. But yeah, it's very important to remember that our humanity is going to sneak up in there and get in the way from time to time. Yeah. I don't know about this row back here.
Are you sure nobody's perfect?
Well, see, with the exception of you, Dean Ted. No, I think there is a certain risk. I know we're all aspiring to perfection, but for me, there's a certain inherent risk in claiming perfection because I know, at least for me personally, what will happen is that's when I start beating up on myself because I feel like I should have known better. So yes, we're all striving for that perfection, but I would just remind us to be gentle with ourselves because we are still, as far as I know, none of us are fully realized, ascended Christ connected beings. So yeah. Really?
What's all this anticipation? I have heard conservative religionists say we should love the sinner but hate the sin. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little extreme, but I think the point beneath that extreme is what do you do with seeing the Christ in someone who's doing something ungodly?
Sure.
Something horrific, something that's opposed to everything you care about, that's harmful to others. Mm-hmm. That's a difficult task.
And it's certainly that's something I've struggled a great deal with, because how do you see the Christ in someone that commits a horrible atrocity and has massacred hundreds of thousands of people? I think for me, it always goes back to the point and the fact that we have a choice. We as humans have a choice to either see that Christ nature and act from that place or not. And I would argue that the people who commit those things, it's not that they're any less to the Christ than anyone else, they're just not choosing to see, recognize, or act from that place. But gosh, why does stuff like that happen? I wish I had an answer, and I wish I had a way to stop it. But until we figure that out, I think that's about all we can do is know that they have that potential. They're just making a different choice. Yeah. Did I see her? That's all right. It's okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and we'll bring this area of the lesson to a close. But I want to thank you all for participating in that. One of the great things that we get a chance to do here as students in these chapel services is try out new things. And so I thank you all for being a part of my little experiment and seeing how that worked, and hope your spiritual path has been enlightened just a little. So, and it's interesting that Dr. Tom was talking about the power of choice, and we kind of had that little discussion, because some of you may not know this, but I really do love movies. I'm a big fan of movies, and I like all types of films, but as my wife and I often talk about, we see enough of that ugliness and stuff going on in the world that I don't need to sit through 2 hours of it. I'd rather watch something comedic. So one of my favorite movies is Bruce Almighty. And if you haven't seen Bruce Almighty, please go see Bruce Almighty, because it's hysterical. It's the story of a news reporter who is having a horrible time in his life and decides to confront God and basically says, I can do a better job than you. What are you doing here? And God comes down and says, okay, do it. And gives him all of his powers, which Bruce proceeds to make a mess out of the greater Baltimore area with. So at the end of the movie, they're having their final conversation, Bruce and God. And God asked Bruce if he'd like to get a little bit of advice after he's told him it's not so easy being God, is it? And Bruce says, yeah, I would love some advice. And so as God smiles and starts to walk away, he looks at Bruce and says, everybody wants a miracle, Bruce. They want me to do everything for them. But what they don't understand is that they're the ones holding the power. I can't think of anything more true than that. It's all up to us. It's all about you. We're the ones that have the power. We have the Christ within us. Miracles don't happen because it's some magical thing that comes down. Miracles happen because we rely on that God within us and we make them happen. And so as God continues to leave, Bruce looks at him and he says, but what if I have a question? What if I need you for something? And God's final line in the film, his final response to Bruce is, you see, Bruce, that's your problem. That's everybody's problem. They all keep looking up. The answers are right here. They always have been and they always will be. So you remember our friend, Mr. Miller, from earlier? Well, as Mr. Peterson continues his story, he writes that several years went by, each more rapid than the previous one. And just recently, I had the occasion to visit some old friends in that Idaho community. And while I was there, I learned that Mr. Miller had died. They were having his viewing that evening, and knowing my friends wanted to go, I agreed to accompany them. Upon arrival at the mortuary, we fell into line to meet the relatives of the deceased and offer whatever words of comfort we could. Ahead of us in line were 3 young men. One was in an army uniform. The other 2 were dressed very neatly. Nice haircuts, dark suits, white shirts, all very professional looking. They approached Mrs. Miller, standing composed and smiling by her. Each of the young men hugged her, and they approached her husband's casket, and they placed a warm hand on top of her husband's cold one. her misty light blue eyes following them as they did. And as they awkwardly walked away, wiping away tears, our turn came to meet Mrs. Miller. And I told her who I was. I mentioned the story she'd told me about the marbles. And with her eyes glistening, she took my hand and led me to the casket. Those 3 young men who just left, they were the boys I told you about. They just told me how they appreciated the things Jim traded them. And now at last, when Jim could no longer change his mind about color or size, they came to pay their debt. We've never had a lot of wealth in this world, she confided, but today, Jim would tell you that he is the richest man in all of Idaho. And with loving gentleness, she lifted the hand of her husband, and resting underneath it were 3 exquisitely shined red marbles. You see, you never know what difference you're going to make for somebody else when you agree to be the Christ nature for them. And so today, when you leave, the ushers will have a marble for you to take home so that you can carry that with you and remember that no matter what, I can come from that Christ place. I can be something for someone else, even if it doesn't seem like much. And just remember that no matter what, you are always, always enough. Thank you. And so we've come to that time in our service where we'd like to bless our love offering. And these offerings go back to our Unity Institute Student Association. So they help support these chapel services happening each week and the other activities for the students here at Unity Institute. If you are making out a check, you can make it out to UISA, or WISA, as we all love to call it, UISA. And if you would just hold your gift. Oh, yes, and see, thank you. Thank you. If you would like to make your donation by credit card or debit card, we have forms that you can fill out and put those in the love offering bag, and we'll be able to process them that way. So, all right. If you need one, just let me know. Evelyn's got them. So, there you go, Evelyn. And so, if you would just take your gift and hold it in your hand. And as you do, we allow our Christ nature to flow through us, blessing these gifts, knowing that they go forward to bless those who receive them, and knowing that just as they bless those who receive them, that they bless the giver as well, knowing we live in an abundant universe and that what we give comes back. And so it is. Amen.
Spending my time sleepwalking, moving my mouth but not saying a thing, hoping the changes would take my work in their way from the outside in. I was in love with an idea, preoccupied with how a life should appear, spending my time at the surface, repairing the holes in the shiny veneer. There are so many ways to hide, there are so many ways not to feel, there are so many ways to deny what is real, and I just showed up for my own life, and I'm standing here taking it in, and it sure looks bright. I'm gonna live my life inspired. Look for the holy in the commonplace. Open the windows and feel all that's honest and real until I'm truly amazed. I'm gonna feel all my emotions. I'm gonna look you in the eyes. I'm gonna listen and hear till it's finally clear and it changes our lives. There are so many ways to hide. There are so many ways not to feel. There are so many ways to deny what is real. And I just showed up for my own life. And I'm standing here taking it in, and it sure looks bright. Oh, the glory of God is manfully alive. Oh, the glory of God is manfully alive. And I just showed up for my own life. And I'm standing here taking it in, and it sure looks bright. And I just showed up for my own life. And I'm standing here taking it in, and it sure looks bright. And the glory of God is manfully alive. And the glory of God is manfully alive. I'm coming alive. I'm coming alive. And I just showed up. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to take a moment and just say a special thank you to Molly and Fred for being here today. And also to everybody who's been involved with this service today, from my ushers who have greeted you and will be giving you marbles as you leave, to the prayer chaplains who will be available for one-on-one prayer following the service, the video team who's been recording this and streaming this out to anybody watching on live stream. Hello. And to Jeffrey, who served as my service coordinator. So thank you to all of you. Now, next week, remember I said we do these every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And next week, you're going to want to be sure to be back here when our student minister will be Ann Francis. And she'll be delivering her message. Oh, no, we can clap for Ann. And her service will be Come Up Higher, so you want to be sure you join us back here for that next week. But as we close our time together, I would like you to stand and join with us as we sing our peace song.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin
I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to join us upstairs for some refreshments and hospitality. But before we head up, I would like you to repeat today's affirmation with me. I'll say it first, and then we'll all say it together. I am the Christ, and I am enough. Together, I am the Christ, and I am enough. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.